You know what I mean? This is my most miserable part of the build, so I'm just like, welcome to part 5 in this series on building a dinghy I designed called the Bed Bug. It's a cruising dinghy for two. My idea with this boat was to maximize the space that the crew could have and keep their weight low while they're operating the boat, and then set an anchor and basically just lay down and sleep in the boat. Still have a main thwart to row from. A couple other things that I'll talk about in this video as I go over the build. This part of the build is the most miserable part of the build by far. I hated almost every step in this. There's parts where I'm cutting fiberglass with a circle saw and spraying glass in the air all over myself. I'm laying glass and it's floating. I'm fitting a bunch of little tiny compartment pieces, trying to make them watertight. I end up replacing these pieces that I'd already made for the deck and the floor because I made them out of 3/8 and I needed to make them out of 1/2 inch just to make them strong enough. And I realized that a little bit too late. I did work with a little bit of canvas and glue in a way that I think is interesting, but for the most part I just hated most of this part of the build. And it starts like every good miserable part of boat building with just sanding. You know, the way I build boats, I try to avoid as much sanding as possible, but I had to clean up this sole section before I was going to lay glass. I did want to put glass on everywhere that's below the water line, even if it's going to be under this this deck up front, just in case water gets in there and gets low to prevent rot. So I'm just kind of cutting and piecing fiberglass and just laying it on top of each other, because this isn't going to be a spot that's going to be seen ever under this deck. If I knew what I was doing with glass, then I would roll this, I would roll the epoxy on and then add another coat on top as it filled the glass. But I just pour this on and then scrape it over with the scraper and float half of this, and it, like I said, it's going to look terrible, but no one's going to ever see it. And I've got to do this over the whole boat from front to back, everywhere below the water line. It really makes that approach where you would glass all these pieces first and then use epoxy to piece them together. That approach to building seems a little bit attractive at this point. And I'm just puzzling all these together and overlapping them because, like I said, no one's ever going to see this. This back, man, that's bad. This back compartment, I'm going to seal all this up. It's going to be under your seat, and you know, maybe another approach would be to leave this so water can pass through it and it can dry out easily. But anyways. Okay, so under this main thwart, there are 7 compartments, and they're all going to be sealed off from each other. And so I've got a cleat. So I got to measure out cleats. I got to measure out little sheets of plywood to separate all these and glue it and clamp it, and each one individually, and just slowly progress through this. Like I said, this is not my favorite part of the build. and I want to have access to one of those compartments from sitting in the cockpit. From, like, I'm going to be sitting right there as you operate the boat. So I'm going to put a hatch cover on here, and that way I can just, whoever's operating the boat, you can just unscrew that hatch, reach in there and get like a sweater or something that's watertight, and then put that hatch back on and it's sealed off. But when you make a hatch like this, you gotta cut the hatch hole, you gotta make a backing plate, you gotta screw all this together and then make sure it fits, and then unscrew it and glue it and screw it back. And this one was in the way of some cleats, so I had to trim off some pieces of that backing plate and get that to fit right and knock everything out. And I'm still just fitting it here. I haven't even applied any adhesive. I'm just making sure that this is all going to work before I start using glue. Okay, so now I'm moving on to adhesive on here. This is PL Marine. You get it at the hardware store. Whoa, 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 whoa. Why is my computer shutting down? Done, and it wasn't charging. So it's going to shut down. I got to restart it. Yay. I'm just in the grumpy mood that's right to film this video. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm back. Okay, and then I just do PL Premium on the back side of this, that polyurethane expanding adhesive to attach the backer. Now I can put all this back together, screw it in, ease up, screw it in, get it tight. And okay, so I'm back to this, my 7 compartments. So on each side, those 2 hatch covers, those are going to open up to be drink holders. I sail out in the desert, you need to stay hydrated. Then this little section is really just a top cover for the that cubby, that watertight cubby that I just put on the hatch cover for. But I need to have a cover for that because the seat, it's just going to look better to have the seat be wider all the way to the drink holders are going to be. So I need to put a cover under it just to keep water out of that central, or to keep water out of that little cubby right there. But I also want that water to drain. So I've got a little bit of an angle on that cover, and then I mark where it's at, and then I just hot glue these little like cleats for it to rest on, and then I can come back in with epoxy and fillet that out. I don't know, do I talk about the Ziploc bag for the epoxy every time I do it? I love it. I don't like working with epoxy, but this thickened epoxy in the Ziploc bag, you'll see later I even do wood glue in a Ziploc bag like this. Just, it's so cheap and so easy to apply. So I know guys talk about the cake decorating bags, but this is, you can just get this at Walmart and it works fine. Okay, so back to this section aft that's going to be covered up with a floor. I need to make all this as watertight as possible. So I'm coming back and filleting out where I've got glass meeting the cleats. And I use a little scraper like this and just kind of trim the corners round. And I find that a good way as a way to make fillets. This little central compartment here is going to be where you can put your feet. So you'll sit like right where my hand is in right now will be covered, and put your feet in there, and you can even brace them on the far side, but you'll sit low, keep your weight low, which is going to have, like when the boat heels, once it's over about 15-20 degrees with your weight that low, it will have more of a riding force than if you were hiked out. So yeah, that deck, like the mid foredeck, and then that stern, that aft deck, I'm going to trace the pieces I already have and then cut it. This, what would you call this? This scribing knife. I just grinded down a file, tried not to ruin the temper. And it's kind of cool, but pencils work better for me. Cut straight lines with the circle saw, cut the curved lines with a jigsaw, and I'm really happy with how these fit first try. I got real lucky. And so now I'm making a couple pieces that are going to go join this aft cockpit sole. These are going to get glued on to make it one cockpit sole piece. It's going to go in the foredeck too. And wood glue's the wrong choice for this, because if water settles low in here, it just dissolves wood glue. But I had this issue where my surface that I was laying them on wasn't keeping them level, no matter how much weight I was putting on there. So I came back in, and I guess you could call it cleating it off. I took some of those split 2x4 lengths that are about 16 inches long, and I came in and screwed those laterally across this piece, and the goal was to force these two pieces to where they mate to be flush, and then I could put them on bricks and apply some weight to these pieces that are getting glued with Type-On 3, and hopefully that'll keep these two pieces flush where they meet. Put teeth into a little plastic trowel and made it a glue spreader, and I really like it. And just take 2 minutes. Those plastic trowels are awesome. You get a case of them for like $8 at Harbor Freight. This foredeck is tricky to get in there. You got to thread the needle a little bit, but it popped right into place. And then you can see as I remove the tape where this is going to get glued down, these pieces did end up flush. My screwing that cleats into it really worked. And so that aft floor piece, that came in and that fit real well too. You can kind of see a little bit of a chamfer that I put where they made on top. That way I can get epoxy in there, and it'll actually have a spot to sit. Okay, so because this aft floor piece is going to be sealed up, I'm going to put 4 different hatch covers on this, with the idea that if water does get in there, well, when water does get in there, you can open all that up and get some airflow through there. So more fun with cutting holes for hatch covers and then cutting backers, and I needed a little bit more structural integrity on that corner there, so I put a cleat underneath it. This is all just getting wood glued. I think that for the most part water's not going to settle in there. I need for air to be able to flow between these sections of this aft part that's going to get sealed off from the top. So I go in with a circle, with a, what is that, a circle saw, a circle drill bit or whatever, and I cut a bunch of holes in here and just have a blast covering myself with fiberglass and wood dust and glue dust and spraying it all over myself. Man, and even my bits on here were just so dull. Harbor Freight special. So this is the bottom of that piece that's going to go in the back, and I'm sealing it all up with epoxy. I think I put a couple coats of epoxy on this to try to keep any moisture that gets in there from causing an issue. You can tell I love working with epoxy in this spot, and I got to go in and try to keep every cut face of wood coated and sealed up to keep rot out. So I just hate epoxy so much that I'm going to come in there and use PL Premium to glue these surfaces together. Returning to my hatch covers, having fun with that again. I think I glued the backing on first on these ones, and then that made it a little bit easier to come in and attach them with PL Marine adhesive. There you get a view of what that label looks like. These are the screws that came with the hatch covers because they're Phillips. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Here I'm doing canvas and wood glue, and this is going to cover the that aft cockpit floor. Cutting out holes for it to fit over the hatch covers, and I'm going to just put Type-On 3 on the back and on top of this. And I've done this like Type-On 3 canvas duck sheathing before, and I like it. It makes a good surface to sit on, to stand on. You know, so many parts of a boat, you end up waterproofing them, and you create this real slick surface that's just a hazard, to be honest. You know, fiberglass and epoxy and paint, layers of that do a great job waterproofing it, but then you got to actually like be on that boat. So this aft cockpit section, I watered down, probably put about like 15, maybe 25, probably 15% water and some Type-On 3, and put that under and then on top, and then spread that all around. And right now it's real discolored and ugly, but put a layer of paint on that, and it's not going to be absolutely waterproof. You know, I'm not going to leave this boat out in the rain with this being exposed, but for the little water exposure that this area is going to get, you know, just splash from sailing and stepping on it with paint and Type-On 3, I think it should be okay. And if it's not, then I'll come back with epoxy. Trim it. I liked the my block plane to clean up the edges of this. Worked better than my little knife. Okay, so now I'm screwing all these pilot holes. What? Why did I go? Oh, okay, yeah. And I got to prep for putting PL on here, so a little bit of just moisture to get that PL ready to kick. And drilling those pilot holes into the cleats, and then I'm going to screw all this down. And I think this part turned out pretty good. I'm going to have to come back in and do epoxy fillets around the border of this to make it watertight. But this approach, I think is working out so far. And I think I'm going to end it there for this video on a little bit of a positive note as I get this back end put together. Worked with a couple different materials in here that I guess are kind of interesting, but I just had no fun in this part of the build. It's kind of like the middle of winter, and I'm just trying to grind away and just chip away little pieces of this. Next part, I'm going to get into a little bit more of an interesting part of the build. I'm going to get a hatch cover and start putting together the aft, that stern seat, and I'm going to make a little sheath for the mizzen mast and that stern seat, and it's going to actually like have some room in the boat to see like how I'm sitting in it and stuff. But that's going to be the next build. So thanks for watching.